Hi, I'm Andrew Holzman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work in Carmel, Indiana for Family Tree Counseling Associates. Been there for over 20 years and I've been a therapist for over 30 years. And I'm entitling this video, Why You Stay. So sometimes provocatively I'll say to someone, and I'm trying to be provocative, I'll say, well, you can always leave. You're allowed to leave a relationship, and people have all kinds of reasons why they don't leave a relationship, of course, and they're very valid reasons such as the children, valid reasons such as financial issues, home issues. And it is real difficult to just pick up and leave. People do that when there's abuse or when the marriage has gotten to a point where they feel that it can't progress any further and they've tried or feel like they've tried many things. So someone will come in and they'll talk about their spouse, they'll talk about their relationship in ways that sound very much like they're a victim. They sound very much in pain from the relationship. So that's when I will, like I said, provocatively say, well, you can leave. It is allowed. And like I said, they'll have excuses. They'll have reasons they won't. Well, if I didn't have children, well, there are people who don't have children and have been married and have good incomes and they don't leave anyway. So certainly, like I said, the reasons are valid, and fear and embarrassment, issues that you don't want to share, what's inside of you, what's going on in the family with other people, family issues. Those are very, very important and valid reasons. I also think there's another reason. There's another kind of psychological, as you wish, valid reason why people don't leave. So I'm kind of outlining here that almost anyone can say that, and people's friends will say, well, you should leave him or her. This person is non-supportive, or they're abusive, or they're spending your money into financial ruin. They're hurting you in some way, and people who love you, your family and your friends, wish for you only the best. And of course, people like to give advice. That's part of what we're doing here too as well. And the advice being, well, if you're unhappy, do something about it. Get off your tush and do something about it. Of course, they're speaking from this place where they're not in the same amount of pain as someone else. They're not in the same amount of pain, or they're not committed in the same way, and they're not in love with that person, whatever that means. And that's, in a sense, the essence of all of this. That the other piece of this is people feel or will say, but I love him, or I love her, or I'm committed to him, or I'm committed to her. And that's valid too. So what's that about? I'd like to dissect that for a moment. What does love mean to you? That could be the title of this video as well. What does love mean to you? So people stay, people don't leave because of something deeper than the financial or the children or the embarrassment, it seems to me. It seems to me that what love is to them might be reflected in what their relationship is. So they're coming in and they're talking about a relationship that in many ways is not working for them. They started out all in love and all connected, and the children didn't matter if it's a blended family, work didn't matter, and nothing matters when you're in that romantic place in your life except the other person. Your brain chemistry changes, your attitude changes, you feel wonderful, you feel so connected, and everyone, I think, misses that when that fades away or isn't as powerful as it once was. And so when that does fade away and the reality of the situation rears its head, and you're dealing with a person's foibles and issues and all of their characteristics that may not be the most positive, and you're dealing with your own as well. So you can get reactive if that's your family of origin type way of acting. You might be critical, you might blow up, you might rage, you might shut down and go away and not want to talk. That might be another way that your family has taught you, or that the way you're put together to react in a family. And certainly men do certain things more than women, and women do things reactions more than men. Whatever those reactions are, men tend to be quieter and be cut off and be disconnected in ways that women are not generally, stereotypically. Not everyone's the same. And women tend to be possibly pushing for the reaction more than men, though I've seen the reverse. It's just stereotypically we're talking about. But whatever your way of being, you're going to find that other person is not like you. They're not going to do it the same way. It's rare that you're going to have two people totally in sync all the time. So if you're wanting to talk about that issue and your wife is not, and she tends to shut down, or if you're wanting to get something out of the table and your husband is going to work 70 hours a week, or finding hobbies to do, or finding ways to avoid the issue, oh, we'll talk later, then that's going to bring up strong feelings. That's going to bring up issues in the relationship. I started talking about, I kind of got off into a different place here, but I started talking about what love is to you. And maybe it is in a different place, because what love is to you has to do with your family, has to do with how your family reacted to certain issues. Is your family a quiet family? Do they tend to keep secrets? Do they tend to not want to talk about emotional issues? And they're very, very structured, and they're very, very strong in their own way, and there's probably a very strong work ethic. Or it might be a chaotic family. It might be a family that is acting out emotionally, where things are not really being dealt with in a quote-unquote healthy way, because there's a lot of addiction, or there's a lot of drama. People are getting arrested, or there's DUIs, or someone gets pregnant. I've talked to families where every single young woman in the family has gotten pregnant before a certain age, before like 17. And so there's always something going on to focus on. So there can be chaotic families, or they can be very shut down, disconnected, but kind of strong work ethic or strong focus families. It can be anything, and every family is great in its own way and very difficult in its own way. And whatever your family does is going to transmit to you a level of what you think love is, and that's going to influence your choice for a husband or a wife or a partner, someone who you love. So if you had a person, if you come from a chaotic family, you might choose someone who's just as chaotic, or you might choose someone who seems very stable. But ultimately they will do the same thing for you that your family did, which is they will bring up the issue of not being there for you. So if you're from a chaotic family and you're trying to be relatively healthy, and you act relatively healthy, so you're not doing the chaotic thing, you're not blowing your life up, and you pick someone to be with you who's going to be a stable influence, well, that's wonderful. That's healthy. You're probably the healthiest person in your family, and yet you're going to bring with you some of those long-term issues that haven't gotten resolved. And so the person you pick will be stable, hopefully. They will be loving, hopefully, but they may not be there for you in the way that you need them to be. So there's a different level of stability. You're going to have a stable life in some ways, but not a stable emotional life, unless you really look at the things that get brought up in you and how you react to them. So you've made that choice. You can't change that. Who you love is who you love, who you've fallen in love with, who you've committed to. And like I said, you can leave, but if you're committed to being in that relationship, then what do? You have to work on it. You have to work on it, and working on it doesn't mean fixing the other person. That would be very frustrating and very impossible. But people try it all the time. They're always trying to influence the other person, or tell the other person what to do, or criticize the other person. And as you probably can guess, that doesn't work very well at all. that blows up in your face, that's just as frustrating, but you feel like you're very healthy and very stable. Unfortunately, you're not paying attention to how you might be lighting a fuse in this relationship, how you might be changing the whole outcome of how things work, because you're an influence too, and you're affecting that person, and they also have come from whatever family they've come from, and bringing their baggage and bringing their issues into the relationship. So what's love for you is going to be how you have grown up and how you've seen love, even if you're resistant to the chaos, or you're vowing to talk and change things in your life. You're still going to bring it with you. For instance, myself, my dad passed away when I was young, and so my internal vow was to be present for my children, and I am present for my children. I can be very focused on my children. Well, what does that say? Well, that's great. I love my kids, and they're good adults now, and they're good people. But it certainly had affected the relationship, because there were times when I was too focused on the family and not focused on the relationship with my wife. And she would feel her feelings about not being as special. And I've seen that happen too, especially in blended families where someone is feeling that the man is feeling very guilty about not seeing the kids very much. And when the kids come over, the man is very focused on the children, and the new wife or the new partner is very, very jealous and feels abandoned, feels hurt, feels frustrated that this person who was really into them and really loving them is not there for them in the same way. Well, I did the same thing even without it being a blended family. I did the same thing because I was very focused on not being an absent dad. And that brought up a lot of feelings for my wife initially, until we talked about it a lot, argued about it a lot, because I didn't see it as wrong. And so that was love to me. Love to me was being a good family person, was being a stable influence. It didn't translate totally. I mean, it translated a lot, but it didn't translate totally to making my wife feel loved and accepted. And, if you come from a place where that's really a big issue, and it's a really powerful issue, as it is probably for all of us, it's going to come up in the relationship. So there's lots of variables that people feel like they need to do in a relationship, in a family, that surprises them, because it's going to bring up strong feelings in the other person, who they have no idea that these feelings are going to be there or how they're going to come out. And so, what love was to me translated at times into being an argument, or being difficult. Or for someone who is feeling abandoned, what love is to them, they might marry someone who's very stable and very strong and works a lot, and they might feel abandoned there. They came from a family that was possibly chaotic, or possibly their parents got divorced and they felt not special. Or a person who comes from a family where they were pushed a lot in terms of succeeding. If their spouse doesn't always give them kudos, always give them validation, they might feel very criticized and judged, and that's going to bring up strong feelings too. So it can go many different ways. You're going to feel something in the relationship. But again, in that family where the person was pushed and was expected to be the sports star or the brain, they are going to want that validation. They're going to want that thing that they got, that issue that isn't resolved, but that feeling that they got in their family. And they're going to pick someone and somehow disappoint that person, because that person may need emotional validation and they're not able to give it. So they're not giving it, they're wanting it. They're wanting to not be um, lost in the relationship, so they're doing what they've always learned to do, which is to succeed, and they may get criticized for it, even though it's a good thing, even though it's a positive thing to work, to make money, to be, supporting the family. That other person is going to feel left out and lost. It's kind of the same issue, and so then the person feels criticized. And what do they do when they're being judged and they're being criticized for doing what they think is right? And that brings up all kinds of feelings. And if you're too narcissistic, if you're too focused on what you're doing is the right thing and not insightful enough to see that there are other feelings going on here, other issues going on, you're going to be pretty rigid, and you're going to block that emotional support from the other person, or that expression from the other person. So it's going to come out as criticism a lot of the time, because they're going to be very frustrated. They're going to keep on banging on this wall saying, hey, kind of pay attention to me, pay emotional attention to me. And if you're not able to, then that creates issues for that person as well. So, and then you get criticized, and then you get judged, and then what do you do with being criticized and judged for doing what you think is the right thing? Well, sometimes people shut down, and that just kind of perpetuates the problem. So love, this is very, very basic in some ways, but love for all of us is different, and how we see love and how we interpret love and what love is to us, and what we pick is going to be love, is going to be how we see love. And it's not always what we think of as in the movies or in the songs. It's going to be touching our inner issues that we need to resolve. And if we're rigid, and if we're over serious, and we're undifferentiated, and we're too narcissistic, a lot of words, we are not going to see it, and we're not going to succeed in getting the love that we want. We're trying to get the love that we want. We're trying to break through some of the issues and some of the walls. So if we were raised in a very structured household, we probably pick someone who's going to help us work through that. If we came in from a very abandoning or chaotic household, we're picking someone to help us work it through. The idea is to let that flow over us. Pay attention to those feelings. Be able to talk about them in ways that we haven't talked about them before, so things get resolved. Thank you for listening. My name is Andy Holzman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. You can reach me at 317-457-8668 or A. Holzman, Holzman 2 at Comcast.net. Thank you for listening again, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.